All right. Hey, everybody. I think we are live here. Just checking a couple things before I start doing anything. We will see if this works. If you're on Instagram, I think we're live on Instagram as well. Will that do anything? We will find out. Okay. Hi. Good evening. While we are here, before we start everything, um, I figure I'll just get this out of the way. You could support this channel by going to patreon.com /Hemant. As always, you can leave a super like. We will try to get to your questions in between stories. Hope you're having a good Friday night. We have so much to talk about. With me, as always, is Den, who is helping out in the comments. So if you leave any questions or comments for me, Den will flag them and make sure they get to me in between breaks and things like that. So I wanted to start off tonight by talking about, I swear, the only story that has seemed to cross my path this week, because I thought it was a small story and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and now it's a national story. And of course, I'm talking about the Satanic Temple's display in the Iowa State Capitol building. And so this shouldn't be a story. I don't know why this is a story, because this is not new. This is not novel. But just to give, I'm going to try to give everyone some background on what's going on, why people are mad, and then how this thing has just gotten completely out of proportion wacky. So I'll do my best to tell that story. But basically, earlier this month, the Iowa State Capitol has an open forum when it comes to holiday displays. Any group that's basically, and if you're a religious group, you can apply through the state's website to put up a display in the Capitol building for like 2 weeks at a time. And this has been the case for several years. So this December, one of the groups that applied to put up a display was the Satanic Temple. I believe the Satanic Temple of Iowa specifically. And their display was basically a Baphomet lookalike, like the giant goat-headed figure. It's Baphomet wearing a red cloak and a festive wreath. And toward the bottom, surrounded by candles, you can actually see a tiny plaque. I'm going to show you a picture right here. Here's what this looked like in practice. So you could see at the bottom of this display, it looks like there are candles and some writing on the wall there, on little placards. And those placards list the Satanic Temple's 7 fundamental tenets. Like, as opposed to the 10 Commandments, there are 7 fundamental tenets. And I want to read you what they are, because let's talk about what this display is actually promoting, right? Because it's not promoting Satanism. The Satanic Temple does not believe in Satan, an actual Satan. But let's go through these 7 fundamental tenets, because this is what it says at the bottom of the display. One should strive to act with compassion and empathy toward all creatures in accordance with reason. That sounds nice. Like, why would anyone be mad about compassion or empathy? Number 2, the struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. Right, we're trying to create a more perfect union, right? That's the idea of the whole country. One's body is inviolable, subject to one's own will alone. Yeah, we have control over our body, bodily autonomy. If women want to have abortions, they should be allowed to have abortions. Number 4, the freedom of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and unjustly encroach upon the freedom of another is to forego one's own. Again, totally sensible. Like, right? Freedom of religion applies to everybody. Number 5, beliefs should conform to one's best scientific understanding of the world. One should take care never to distort science facts to fit one's belief. Another very sensible take on life. People are fallible. If one makes a mistake, one should do one's best to rectify it and resolve any harm that might have been caused. Seems like a very sensible thing to say. And finally, every tenet is a guiding principle designed to inspire nobility in action and thought. The spirit of compassion, wisdom, and justice should always prevail over the written or spoken word. Again, I only mention all this, and the only reason I'm reading all of those to you is not to like pad the length of this segment. It's to say that's what they're promoting with their display in the Iowa Capitol. Like, who could be against any one of those things? I know there are people who think like bodily autonomy. I get to decide what other people do with their bodies. But by and large, those are normal, good things that I think most people would get behind if it wasn't the Satanic Temple promoting it, right? So the Satanic Temple puts up this display. They get permission from the Iowa State Capitol to put up that display with it. I think originally they actually wanted to use the actual skull of a dead goat, and Iowa officials said you can't do that, and they said fine, damn it, we will use a different head made of like glass and mirrors so it looks shiny and cool. So that's what they ended up going with. And I want to show you one other thing here. This is the actual calendar on the Iowa Capitol website that says what's happening, what's being displayed. Let me show you, let me click on agenda here so you could see. Today is Friday. Look at the displays they have today. I'll blow this up a little bit. Today, they have a Bill of Rights display. That's from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. It's kind of like a few founding fathers next to the Constitution saying, hey, the Bill of Rights is a good thing. Fine. You have one from the Iowa Atheists and Freethinkers celebrating the winter solstice. Again, it's not offensive, but it is an atheist group. You have a Catholic group, the Thomas More Society, with an actual nativity scene. You have the Satanic Temple with their display and then some chamber choir singing. And you can even see tomorrow on Saturday, the Satanic Temple's display will still be there. But by Monday, when they're open again, it's gone. Why is it gone? Because the 2 weeks are up. The point is, look, these are the groups that applied to have their displays in the Iowa State Capitol for a couple of weeks. They all got approved. That's what you will see in the rotunda if you walk through it. And so none of this should be weird or offensive or anything like that. It's what they've been doing for years. The state has a public forum when it comes to these displays, and they've done that for years now. And atheists and Satanists and what have you have long taken advantage of that. So the fact that a satanic display is up this year, that's not really new. That's not really that interesting. It is provocative in a way, I'll grant you that, but it's really not that special. But conservatives took the bait. And man, here's one example of what I'm talking about when I say they took the bait here. This is from an evangelist, Joel Tenney. Look at what he wrote earlier this month. This is as soon as the display went up. This is the grossest form of idolatry I have ever seen in my state. To see this in the Iowa Capitol, nonetheless, I will not stand for this. All it takes for the grossest of societal disease to spread is the indifference of good men. Why on God's green earth is the Baphomet demon given a place in our capital? I would like to know who approved this and get them fired immediately. Who's going to bail me out? That got weird fast. First of all, who approved this? The lawmakers, the Republican lawmakers in Iowa. They're who approved this. If you want to get more specific, it was the people who work for the Iowa Capitol building. They don't need to be fired. They are doing their jobs. If you don't like the law, change the law. Who's going to bail me out? That implies he's going to do something to the display. He's basically advertising that he's going to vandalize the display. Stick a pin in that. We will come back to it. But that's the sort of rhetoric this statue, which again promotes empathy and compassion and kindness, that's what inspired this insane take from that dude. And he wasn't alone. Here's another one. This is, I think, from one of the guys who runs the Babylon Bee, which is like a fake humor site that doesn't know how to be funny. grab your sledgehammer, boys. We're going to Iowa. Like a totally normal person who just travels to another state to destroy things. Like, aren't conservatives the ones that get mad whenever they think liberals destroy things? And yet, here they are. This is from an article from Fox, of all places. But look at what this random lady said. They interviewed her at the Capitol. Iowa resident Shelley Flockhart said she was shocked to see the display. It's a very dark, evil force, and I truly hope people know how to battle that, Flockhart said. In response, Flockhart held a prayer group on Wednesday at the Christmas tree located inside the Iowa Capitol building. I hope that people realize spiritual warfare is real, that there are evil, satanic forces that are trying to infiltrate our state. Like, Jesus, calm down, Shelley. There's nothing crazy happening here. All of this stuff is totally normal. Okay, maybe, though, you are thinking those are random, cherry-picked crazy people. What are actual people with power saying? And of course, you know where I'm going with this. It gets totally worse because here, this is Brad Sherman. Brad Sherman is a lawmaker in Iowa. He is a Republican lawmaker, and he sent out a newsletter that says, look at this. According to the opening lines of our Constitution, the foundation for laws and continued blessing and success in Iowa is based on these points. Number one, there is one supreme God. Like, already you have failed the test. Number two, blessings over this state come from the one supreme God. That's very convenient. Number three, we must depend upon the one supreme God if we want to enjoy continued blessings. That's a very weird way for him to say Jews are not welcome in Iowa. Atheists are not welcome in Iowa. Anyone who's a progressive Christian, you know Brad Sherman doesn't like them either. And yet, that is what he is saying. In response to the satanic display, he writes, it is a tortured and twisted interpretation of law that affords Satan, who is universally understood to be the enemy of God, religious expression equal to God in an institution of government that depends upon God for continued blessings, yada, yada, yada. Religious freedom doesn't apply to anyone he doesn't think likes his religion or anyone he doesn't like. That's where he's going with this. He loves the Constitution. He loves religious freedom, but not for you, just for him. And at the end of this newsletter, later on in it, he says he has prescriptions for what to do moving forward. I'm calling for our governor to have this blasphemous display removed immediately based on the grounds that it is unconstitutional. It is not. And offends God upon whom the state of Iowa depends for blessings. Like, man, the Christian God is a very fragile mythical creature, man. And it's not unconstitutional. Again, the Satanic Temple is an IRS-approved religion. It is a religion. It's no different than any other smaller religion you've ever heard of. They get to have their beliefs. They get to share their beliefs. It doesn't matter what you think about it. Number two, says Sherman, I'm calling for clarifying legislation to be adopted in accordance with our state constitution that prohibits satanic displays in our Capitol building and on all state-owned property. Again, he's saying, let's have a rule that says religious freedom, but not for those people who I don't like, which you would think violates the entire spirit of the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause, freedom of religion, any principle our country was founded on. He does not care. And finally, he's calling for legislation to be adopted that makes it legal. Oh, this is to display the 10 Commandments in our Capitol, in all buildings owned by the state, in our public schools. He's just using this opportunity to say, you know what? It's not enough that we block groups I don't like from having access to the Capitol. I also want to make sure I'm shoving my religion down everyone else's throat. He didn't need to say that last one. He just decided to shove it in there. So that's an elected Republican saying that stuff. That is Christian nationalism in a nutshell right there. It implies that his religion, his Christianity, is the only one that counts, that religions he does not like should be prohibited from having access to the same public space as everybody else. and he's urging lawmakers to shove his brand of Christianity in everyone else's face. It's not just him though. It got weirder because it didn't stop with Brad Sherman. It also went to Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, the Republican failing nominee for the Republican presidential ticket, did a town hall with CNN this week, and that town hall took place in Des Moines. And so naturally, he was asked what he thought about the satanic display because it's CNN and they ask dumb questions. Like, think about this. How would you answer this question if they asked you, what do you think should be done about the satanic display? The correct answer, if you are a Republican running for president, would be, I don't like it. However, the beauty of our country is that the Constitution requires freedom of religion, even ones I don't like. And so they have a right to be there. I don't like it, but they're allowed to be there. I suggest we pray about it. I don't know, some bullshit like that. He could have said that. I will play you what he actually said because that is so not what he said.
So it's interesting. I heard this and then I was like, well, how did it get there? Is that even a religion? And lo and behold, the Trump administration gave them approval to be under the IRS as a religion. So that gave them the legal ability to potentially do it. So I don't know what the legislature, how they analyzed it, but it very well may be because of that ruling under Donald Trump that they may have had a legal leg to stand on. My view would be that's not a religion that the founding fathers were trying to create. But I do think that IRS ruling, I was really surprised to see that they did that.
Incredible. He blamed Donald. He found a way to blame Trump for that display because the IRS approved the Satanic Temple's like 501c3 status in 2019, as if Donald Trump was personally going through the IRS's filings and like put his stamp or footprint on it or whatever he does. So just a dumb answer from a dumb candidate. And by the way, he's also implying that under a DeSantis administration, which thankfully will not happen, religious freedom will not extend to non-Christian groups that the founders didn't personally support, which means anyone who follows Islam, Hinduism, like atheism, we're all out of luck, even though the founders were not the brand of Christianity of these guys. DeSantis will not admit, by the way, that the founders were not fans. A lot of them were not fans of Christianity, and that they found the country on the idea of religious freedom. Even the governor of Iowa was not better about any of this. This is what Kim Reynolds said. She's also a Republican. Kim Reynolds released this statement. Like many Iowans, I find the Satanic Temple's display in the Capitol absolutely objectionable. In a free society, the best response to objectionable speech is more speech, and I encourage all those to join me in prayer. No one cares. Absolutely objectionable. I repeat, what is objectionable about the display? Was it the line about trying to be compassionate, to be empathetic? What was it? The idea that promoting reason-based thinking is a good idea? Which part of it does she not like? I wish Kim Reynolds would be a little more specific. She was not. But she did say later on, this is another Kim Reynolds original. Today, faithful Iowans gathered in the Capitol Rotunda to display the nativity and pray for peace. Free speech is a right afforded to all, but how we use it matters. Today's event is proof that in a battle between good and evil, good will prevail. Like, what the hell are you talking about? First of all, free speech is a right, sure, but it matters how we use it. That suggests she doesn't like free speech when it personally offends her, which is stupid. That's not free speech then. You don't need free speech when you like what's being said. But also, the battle between good and evil. She is implying that the satanic display, or Satanism, as the Satanic Temple promotes it, is evil. How? What have they done that is evil? Was it helped women trying to get health care? Was it when they tried to get reproductive health equipment, tampons, pads to people who need that? Like, Be specific. I know what they're doing. I know they just see the word Satan and they say, I got to go against this because my base is too dumb to know what these people actually stand for. They don't know how to read. They won't read. They don't watch anything. So I just got to pretend like I'm anti-Satan. But again, anyone doing the bare minimum of like Google research would know that what the display stands for is anything but evil. I think my favorite reaction did not come from a lawmaker, though. It wasn't from like Ron DeSantis or Kim Reynolds. It came from an academic who was really mad about the display. And this came from a guy named Andrew Walker, who is an associate professor of Christian ethics at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. So he's a seminary professor, and he wrote a column for the Christian publication called World. World, by the way, is spelled in all caps because they're very special. But his take on this is satanic displays have no place in government buildings. Religious freedom is no blank check for the celebration of evil, as if they were murdering people at the display and like, I don't know, killing them off. What the hell? This is what he writes in this article. We allow and do not promote moral evil as merely a consequence of people misusing and abusing their rights. At some point, though, political communities determine that some moral evils reach a threshold of such harm that they can no longer be allowed and are restricted through criminal punishment. This is chiefly a legislative question before it's a judicial question. The people working through their government determine where those lines should be drawn so that too much liberty does not harm the community, and likewise that a burdensome legalism does not squelch liberty. Listen, everybody, if you were ever thinking about getting a diploma from a seminary, this guy is proof that that diploma is garbage. Look at this other thing this guy wrote. Satanism, whether real or pretend, is an outright celebration of evil, darkness, and perversity. So in my view, there should be no satanic displays in government buildings. I repeat, which of the tenets do you not like? Be specific. None of these people will be specific because if they ever looked into the thing they were demonizing, literally, they would realize they have nothing to be mad about. Is he mad about saying compassion, wisdom, and justice should prevail? That, encroaching on someone else's freedoms means they don't actually have freedom? Now, let me say, before I trash every Republican in existence, there were a couple who spoke sensibly about all this. One of them who got a lot of backlash was a state representative named John Dunwell. He actually published this very long, he's a blue check mark on Twitter now under Elon, but he says at the end, my observation as a follower of Christ, I certainly find the display from the Satanic Temple objectionable. It stands in direct opposition to my faith and would be classified as evil. Again, how? None of these people will say it. Not a new experience for me and my family because Christians are always persecuted. Blah, 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 blah. But my response as a follower of Christ, I'm going to go back up. My observation as an Iowan and state representative, I don't want the state evaluating and making determinations about religions. I'm guided by the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Yes, that's the right answer. You don't want the state picking and choosing which religions are winners. And what all of these other Republicans are saying is, well, I'm not saying Christianity's the winner, wink, wink, but I am saying the Satanic Temples, their version of Satanism, that's a loser, so it shouldn't be allowed. You don't want the government making that decision in a free country. And then this guy, Dunwell, goes on to say, as a follower of Christ, what do I do as a human? Well, it's an inanimate object. It has no real power. We have nothing to fear. I mean, yeah, I agree. You have nothing to fear. Why would you? Oppose the message of the display. It's not just another way to worship the same God. There are differences that need to be pointed out. Jesus Christ. What are you mad about? What do you oppose? Which part? Was it the part where they said everyone should, treat scientific facts as like their basis for reason. Which thing do you oppose? I don't know. The primary response required is prayer. Look, they say a lot of stupid things, but by and large, this guy was saying, I don't care if the display is there. It's fine. It doesn't bother me. There are Christian responses to it that I could use. It's all good. Like, I guess kudos to him for saying that. It could be okay. By the way, one thing he also added in his long tweet is that there are legislative fixes to this. He could monitor, lawmakers could pass a law saying, let's monitor the number of organizations requesting displays. That way, the Capitol isn't inundated with displays some people don't like, basically. Except the problem is that we have tried that before. In fact, they have tried it in the Iowa Capitol. Back in 2019, that was their policy. They said, we don't want all these displays here. What if we just allowed like 8 over the holidays and just opened the floodgates and said the first 8 can put up their displays in the Capitol? Do you know what happened when they did that in Iowa in 2019? This is what happened. Atheist won 7 of the 8 holiday display slots in the Iowa Capitol. Like, limiting the options just means the Satanists will act quicker or the atheists will act quicker. So that plan would backfire. It has backfired. It backfired in Iowa. But again, at least he had the right idea, right? Doesn't matter what you think about the display. Satanists have a right to the spot. They have a right to the public place, and they followed the rules. They did everything the Iowa officials wanted them to do. So that's all fine. The point of all this, I mean, by the way, there are other fixes. You could say, fine, you could just put a nativity scene only in the Capitol Rotunda, but you got to make sure it's surrounded by symbols of non-Christian faiths and symbols of secular ways to celebrate the holidays. That's one way around it. They could also just ban all holiday displays and be done with it, but apparently they don't want to do that. But the point is, Christians cannot have a monopoly in the Capitol. This is not surprising. It shouldn't be surprising. I will say, to Dunwell's post on Twitter, the Republican who said it's fine, he got so much backlash from like right-wing trolls online saying, what the hell is wrong with you? How dare you condone freedom of religion and speech? He actually said in a later tweet, this made me laugh. I'm sorry, this is on Facebook. This is what he shared like a day or two after that first tweet. It's not that radical. I don't want the government dictating, approving, or regulating religious expression. I would rather have an evil, blasphemous display or no display at all than have the state dictate what they think is appropriate. And then skipping down, I am shocked so many want to give up their freedom so they don't have to see a display they disagree with. Like, my dude, you're a Republican. Have you met everyone else in your party? All they want to do is take away everyone else's freedoms because they can't handle things they disagree with. They love to complain about cancel culture, and then they will try to cancel everything they don't like. They are hypocrites. That is what the Republican Party stands for. So what the hell is this guy talking about? So I'm saying, and he's the best one of the bunch. All the rest of them were insane. At least that guy spoke some sensible stuff, right? But okay. I will say there was another Republican, Steve Holt, also an Iowa State Republican. He said, while I disdain anything that this organization stands for, I nonetheless believe they have the constitutionally protected right to put up the display. Which, again, what do you have a disdain for? Be specific. He's not. None of them are. But this is what was happening for days. For well over a week, it was the Satanic Temple put up this display. Every Republican starts to complain about it as if it's a personal travesty to their decency. You know what I mean? And then on Thursday morning, guess what happened? You know exactly what happened. Because finally, all this stuff came together. All the Republicans, the pressure campaign worked. And here's the headline from Thursday. Satanic Temple display at Iowa State Capitol vandalized. This is in the original setting right there. But let me show you this. This is what it looked like Today, at the Iowa Capitol, someone vandalized our holiday display and attempted to throw Baphomet into the trash. The statue was beyond repair, but the altar still stands. So that seems pretty predictable. Yeah, someone vandalized the display. Why? Well, when every Republican you know is talking about how evil this is, how horrible this is, how it has no business being in the Iowa Capitol, and Ron DeSantis gets on TV and talks about how it's wrong too, of course someone's gonna vandalize it. We can't be surprised about that. What is a little surprising is the guy who did it. And this is an article published in a right-wing outlet. Don't call it news. It's an outlet called The Sentinel. Exclusive. Christian tears down and beheads Satan shrine in Iowa Capitol. They even give us his name, Michael Cassidy, a Christian and former military officer, pushed over and decapitated the statue before he discarded the head in a trash can. And here's the thing about right-wing sites like this, like The Sentinel. They're very proud of him. They're so happy he did this. And I'm going to show you a couple excerpts here because he spoke to them. I don't know if he knows these guys personally or what, because I had not heard of this outlet before this particular article. But Michael Cassidy, the alleged culprit of all this, he spoke. He said, "The world may tell Christians to submissively accept the legitimization of Satan, but none of the founders would have considered government sanction of satanic altars inside Capitol buildings as protected by the First Amendment." Yeah, my dude, like the founding fathers also didn't think women deserved to vote and black people could not have rights. Like they were wrong about a lot of things. They didn't have much understanding about how far freedom of religion would go. They didn't like non-Christian religions, but a bunch of them were deists. A bunch of them were critical of religion. This guy goes on. Anti-Christian values have steadily been mainstreamed more and more in recent decades, and Christians have largely acted like the proverbial frog in the boiling pot of water. He's wrong, but I just want to say, anti-Christian values. I know, broken record on this. What did the satanic display say or represent that was anti-Christian? Was it the part where it said we should like be kind and compassionate? No, of course not. Cassidy continued, "I saw this blasphemous statue and was outraged. My conscience is held captive to the word of God, not to bureaucratic decree, and so I acted." And he says one more thing at the end here. Oh, he cited a Bible verse as motivation for his destruction of the statue. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the works of the devil. The Satanic Temple does not believe in the devil, so if he's using that as motivation, it makes no sense. And then he said, Scripture exhorts us to think and act like Jesus Christ. And as everyone knows, Jesus was a criminal who destroyed things that weren't his, I guess. I don't know where he's going with that. So Michael Cassidy did that. I'm going to tell you a little more about this guy in a second. But again, nothing he said there makes any sense at all. He's just a straight up jackass who vandalized the statue. I should say he apparently turned himself in because he wanted credit for all this. He now faces a charge of 4th-degree criminal mischief, which if he's found guilty and the whole book is thrown at him, it's a fine that's between $315 and $1,875. So maybe a $1,000 to $2,000 fine and up to a year in jail. I don't think he's going to get much of anything if he gets anything, but like, there's no way this guy's going to jail over this. But this is where it took a weird turn today. I was not surprised by the vandalism at all. I was a little surprised at how openly Republicans were gloating over the destruction. And here's what I mean by that. There is a site called GoFundMe. You've all heard of GoFundMe. There's a Christian version of that site called Give, Send, Go, which is where all the right-wing, insurrectionists and neo-Nazis, this is where they go. Well, guess what? There's a Michael Cassidy legal defense. Guess who set it up? Campaign created, right above my head here, campaign created by the Sentinel, like a legitimate news outlet. Very proud of their man who destroyed the thing. How much money is he asking for, or the site asking for? $20,000. As of right now, they have raised $42,000 plus. For what? It's not the fine, which is like $1,800 at worst. Like he doesn't need any of this money. But this just shows you how excited Republicans are that this Christian is a damn criminal and he vandalized the thing we don't like. They raised $40,000 for this asshole. By the way, this is important. He's not just a Christian who happened to be there. He's not just a former military dude. This is a guy who was the Republican candidate for a congressional seat from Mississippi. Like, not even forever ago. I mean, like, where is this? This is in 2022. I will show you this. Here we go. In 2022, this is from Ballotpedia, he was in the Republican primary for a U.S. congressional district, and he lost to the other Republican. That Republican ended up winning the seat. That was in 2022. In 2023, he ran for the Mississippi State House. And that time, he lost in a relatively blue district to another Democrat. But this is a guy who, like, last month, was running for state house in Mississippi, ran for Congress last year. I assume he still lives in Mississippi since he ran for state house last month, which means this guy ran for the legislature, lost, then decided later on to drive up to Iowa for, as far as I can tell, the only purpose of his drive to Iowa was to destroy this display. Republicans are not sending their best. The Satanic Temple of Iowa said their display has been destroyed beyond repair. They took a pretty magnanimous approach to it all. They just said, hey, use the 7 tenets as a reminder for empathy in the knowledge that justice is being pursued the correct way through legal means. Like, they're not asking anyone to get revenge. Do not destroy the nativity scene in the Iowa Capitol. That's not going to fix anything. Just let the justice system do its course. But I do want to highlight just how excited Republicans are about this. Here is that news site, the Sentinel, responding to the act of destruction. Follow us on Twitter. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back up here. Our site is attempting to handle a lot of traffic as people read this incredible story of Christian conviction and zeal. Like, what the hell? That guy was a vandal. Here's Charlie Kirk, the right-wing troll. Michael Cassidy just beheaded a monument to Satan inside the Iowa State Capitol building. The Satanic Temple of Iowa is pressing charges, and Cassidy is facing fourth-degree criminal mischief. We know that already, okay? Turning Point USA, Kirk's group, is proud to pledge $10,000 to his legal defense fund. They are just straight up giving money to a dude who destroyed property in a state capitol that they didn't like. That's it. This is another troll Twitter account. And wokeness. This is Michael Cassidy. He's a devout Christian and a former military officer. Michael just tore down and beheaded the Satan idol that was erected in the Iowa Capitol. Not all heroes wear capes. Just ludicrous. Here's another one. This is from another right-wing provocateur. Death to Satan. Like, sorry, dude, Satan has nothing to do with any of this. Young Republicans of Texas chimed in. They're very excited. If I were 20 years younger, I would tell you what all that means. I don't know, but they're very excited. My favorite, by favorite, I mean most disturbing one, came from MAGA red hat wearing Joshua Feuerstein, the Christian grifter. He's now running for state legislature in Texas. As a candidate, here's what he's saying now. I promise if a satanic statue is ever erected in the Texas Capitol, I will personally tear it down. Now vote for me because I'm running for office. Like, that's what they're doing. And of course, who else chimed in? The most desperate man in Republican politics, Ron DeSantis, who said Satan has no place in our society and should not be recognized as a religion by the federal government. Scientology, fine. Mormonism, fine. Everything else, fine, but not that one. I will chip in to contribute to this Veterans Legal Defense Fund. Good prevails over evil. That's the American spirit. Ron DeSantis is encouraging this mob mentality, not against anyone who hurt anybody, against an inanimate object. Because the animate object that's in his path right now, Donald Trump, is someone he can't beat. So he's taking his vengeance out on a statue. I just want to, okay, one last thing. Then I swear to God, I'm done with this damn story. The website for Michael Cassidy, when he was running for Congress, he actually had a whole page of issues, like what does he stand for? And it's typical right-wing trash. But I found this one very, very interesting when it came to law and order. Check this one out right over here. Let me highlight this for you so you can see it. Mandatory minimums for mob destruction of statues, infrastructure, and houses of worship. Automatic 10 years in jail, plus the cost of repair. So this is going back to the time you had people like tearing down Confederate statues. I know this wasn't a mob. It was just one dude. I know it wasn't a statue. It was a display. But I'm saying his principle here is if you destroy something that's not yours and you're doing it because you're like egged on by this mob of people, you should spend 10 years in jail. And now he's the dude being pressured and he decided to do the deed. And like, he's not going to get 10 years in jail. He's definitely not even going to get 1 year in jail. He's going to get no time in jail. He might have to pay a small fine. But I'm just saying, what does the Republican Party stand for? Hypocrisy. It's all projection. He wants these people to go to jail for destroying things. When he does it, he's a hero. Like, everything about this story is just a microcosm of Republican politics. It's so frustrating. I think I'll stop there. I don't know what else is going to happen with this display. It was going to come down Saturday anyway. All these people had to do was wait like 48 hours and it would have been out of their lives, and they couldn't do it because they're so hell-bent on acting persecuted that they just can't get over the fact that other people also exist in society. Hi, Den. How you doing? What else we got here? What questions do you all have as we go through stuff? Oh, you help every Friday. Thank you. I appreciate that, Fritz. Thanks. Hey, it helps me to get this off my chest. What else we got? I got to go see this display. It's less than 5 miles from my house. Go see it. It's in Des Moines. Do me a favor. Don't vandalize anything. Can you imagine if Satanists, a self-described Satanist, went to the Iowa Capitol and destroyed the nativity scene from that Catholic group? The reaction would not be, well, you didn't like it, so I guess it's cool. And then what if Joe Biden decides to donate to that vandal's GoFundMe page? Like, that would never happen, because all of this mentality, this persecuted, gotta hurt other people mentality, that is a one-party thing in this country. Other people don't do that shit. What else? They didn't read any of it. They saw Satan and drew their own conclusions. That is correct. That is how it always works, by the way. And I got another story about that coming up in a second. What do you think will bring more people to Christianity? Freaking out over a display or responding rationally with thought? You know, I have had this same question when it comes to, like, who would draw more people into the Catholic Church? The priests? Obviously, there are a bunch of them who are horrible, but like the priests who demand, like, no, you can't be for same-sex marriage. You have to be against abortion in every situation. Or someone like Joe Biden, who, for all his faults, wears his Catholicism and his faith on his sleeve and is fundamentally a decent person, even though I don't like some of his politics. Like, I would imagine someone like Biden, if not him himself, like, are doing more to bring people closer to the faith. Like, I could get on board with that version of his religion, but whatever the priests are selling me, whatever the Vatican is selling me, hell no. It's the same type of thing here. Like, these Christian nationalists are pushing people away from their religion. They're not really drawing anyone in. And if they are, like Donald Trump is drawing in the Christian nationalist base, but it's not because of Jesus. It's because of just power and the cult of personality. So it's not working. Will Christians be putting up their own satanic statues so they can tear them down and get money for tearing it? You're giving them ideas. Like, some of those Charlie Kirk followers are already trying to figure out how they can grift off of this. Joshua Feuerstein is applying to put up that satanic display in Texas right now. I wouldn't put it past them. Shouldn't this guy be charged for a hate crime? Because I guess the question is, who is he trying to hurt? He's not making some manifesto saying anyone who's not a Christian should be injured. I don't think it fits the definition of a hate crime. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not well versed in this, but I don't think it fits the definition of a hate crime. He's just destroying property that's not his because he doesn't like it. That should be a criminal act. Like I said, he's being charged with fourth-degree criminal mischief. So there is a penalty. I think that's appropriate. Seems like it. I wish the state of Iowa would do something on behalf of the Satanists saying, hey, we allowed this in. We weren't monitoring the displays. Maybe we can do something to help them recoup any of their costs for, I don't know. I don't know what's in their power to do. I do not think it's a hate crime. I could be wrong about that, but doesn't strike me as something like that. There are actual hate crimes. This isn't one of them. Is there a way to suggest articles? Do you mean like in the comment thread? I don't know if it's limited depending on which thing you are using. But I will say, if you want to send me an article, Den can put my the email address in the comments. It's pretty public. I don't care. You can always send me tips. You can send me articles. I look at every email I get, even if I don't use it. Any other? Oh, thank you for that. New Apostolic Reformation took over the military. I can't comment on that. I don't know too much about it. I know there was a heavy Christian fundamentalist bent in the U.S. military, and there are a lot of groups that are pushing back against Christian nationalism in the military, where the rules are even stricter than in, say, the state capitals. But I don't know that specific group. Cool. And with that, give me a second here while I pull up something that's similar and yet different. I feel like I just had 300 tabs that I have to close at the same time, but that takes care of half of them right there. Yeah, just give me 1 second here while I pull this up. Here we go. Okay. I want to talk about another display that appeared in Toledo, Iowa. Different city, has nothing to do with the satanic display. But I joked about this at the beginning of the stream. Like, all this news this week seemed to concern Iowa, which is a rarity. So very interesting. But basically what happened this week, I'm going to show you this one picture. If I can share this. Yeah, I'm going to show you this one picture here. This is outside the Toledo Fire Department. And again, I know there's a Toledo in Ohio. This is Toledo, Iowa. And basically, there's an atheist named Justin Scott. Really nice guy. He's an atheist. He's an activist of sorts. But he wouldn't normally care about this thing. But he said he was driving past this city on his way to like a family thing. And he noticed that outside the fire department, there was this nativity scene. It's just a straight up Christian nativity scene, nothing else there. And he knows you can't just have a nativity scene outside a government building. Like, that's literally, the law doesn't allow for that. And so he knew that. And so by the way, he's the founder of a group called Eastern Iowa Atheists. He knows government entities are limited to what they can do around the holidays. And he also knows what I mentioned in the previous story, the options you have if you want to put a nativity outside your building. You could do an open forum where various groups can apply, which is what we saw in the Iowa Capitol. You could put up a nativity scene, but you have to have other symbols around it, secular, non-Christian symbols, just to show, look, it's not just Christianity we're promoting. Or you could just not do anything and like do your job and put out fires. That's another option that never crossed their mind. But this was obviously just promoting Christianity. So Justin Scott alerts the Freedom from Religion Foundation about all this. And it didn't take long before they sent a letter to the city of Toledo. And the thing to highlight here is right above my head right now. Prominently displaying this nativity scene on public property, the city abridges its duty to remain neutral towards religion. Nativity scenes on public property are unnecessary, inappropriate, and divisive. It is irrefutable that the nativity is a religious Christian symbol. The best solution is to remove this nativity scene and discontinue hosting religious displays on public property altogether. So, FFRF absolutely right about that. They shouldn't have that display. It doesn't belong there. It shouldn't be there. All of that makes perfect sense. Guess how everyone in the city took that information? Turns out they did not handle it very well. In a local paper, they quoted the mayor. His name is Brian Sokol. And here's what he said. It's unfortunate that we have to have this discussion. It was donated, the nativity scene, it was donated to the city and has been up every year for 15 to 20 years. It'll be a discussion item for the city council to decide if we put it back up or we permanently relocate it. We've received a lot of positive comments, and the feedback has been to keep it up. A lawsuit could be a possibility, but unfortunately, it seems too many groups want to sue about anything. Couple things about that. One is, after they got the letter from FFRF, the fire department did move that nativity display off of public property and a block over to private property, at least for now. That was the right move. Good. The mayor obviously did not like that. And then he said at the end there, too many groups want to sue about everything, which is bullshit. Like, FFRF did not say they were suing. They didn't even threaten a lawsuit. They said, hey, this thing you're doing here, it's not okay. You should fix it before it becomes a problem. Like, the city should be thanking FFRF. They should be sending roses to Justin Scott, not acting like, oh my God, we're being persecuted. And this idea that the display had been up for 15 to 20 years, who cares? Just because a tradition happens for a long time doesn't mean you're supposed to continue it. Bad traditions need to end. Just because no one had the courage or no one knew enough to put a stop to this doesn't mean the city was right. They got away with basically doing something illegal for 15 to 20 years. And now they have someone saying, hey, this thing is illegal, you should stop it. And the city should say, oh, didn't realize we were making a mistake, and then listen to the advice. So again, everyone except the people in the city is doing the right thing. I should also say, Justin Scott, FFRF said you should just take this display down and end it. Justin Scott actually took a different route. He said, listen, I don't care what you do. I prefer you put up different holiday displays around the nativity scene, but I don't care if you take it down or not. Again, all of those answers are correct. You could do whatever you want. So last week, I was wondering, what's the city going to do about this? And last week, here's what the city of Toledo did. They actually posted this on Facebook. They posted the FFRF letter that they got for the public. And they said, in case you're wondering where the nativity display went in front of the fire department, here's the letter we received due to a complaint. If you wish to voice your opinion, either way, it'll be on the council agenda Monday the 11th. So basically, like, you guys, we got this letter from these crazy people. Someone complained. But if you want to say anything about it at, say, the city council meeting, here's when the meeting is. Like, the city is begging people to show up and complain about this, which is very passive aggressive, and I don't love it. But that is what happened. They had their meeting on Monday night, and a lot of people complained about it. And that includes the daughter of the dude who made the display. Sorry for that pop-up there. I can't get rid of that lady. But look at this. Her father made the display from wood some 30 years ago. It was on private land for a long time before I moved to the fire department about 20 years ago. She said, Friday morning, I went to City Hall to see who had asked for that to be taken down, and I was given the letter and the name of the person. It was found out that this person doesn't even live in our community. This person is from another community, not even connected to our county. I'm going to pause there for a second just to say, who cares? It doesn't matter that Justin doesn't live in the community. You don't get to create a theocracy in your county just because no one complains about the Christian display. Like, what is this idea that, oh, it's someone else in our community saying we need to follow the law? Who cares what that outsider says? We do whatever we want within these fences. Like, that's not how the country works. But on Monday night, all these people swarmed into the city council meeting. There's no video of it. I wish I could show you that. But a lot of them complained about the movement of the display. And the city council is basically saying, listen, we can't do anything. Our hands are tied, but we're talking to our lawyers about it, and we'll do whatever the lawyers tell us to do. Don't blame us. Please reelect us, I assume, is where they went with that. And by the end of all this, after they spoke to their lawyers, you will never guess what happened after all of that. The lawyers, it turns out, as of yesterday, let me make sure I'm sharing this here. The lawyers, I assume, told them, hey, the atheists were right about everything. So your options are surround the display with other non-Christian displays or remove it. And guess what they did? According to, on Thursday, the Iowa Standard, the nativity scene we told you about has been moved back. It's back in front of the fire department. But as you can see right over here, it has company. There's Santa and one reindeer, and that's it. That's the only change to the display. They popped in. So just to be clear here, what they have now is not just a promotion of Christianity. They have a celebration of the commercialization of Christianity. So I guess that's diverse. Like, there's still no way, as far as I can tell, for Satanists to get a display on that property. If I, as an atheist, wanted to get a display on the property, there's no way to do it. But I guess because we're celebrating Santa and not Jewish people, it's okay, according to the city. I'm not sure what their logic is. The sad thing is, the case law, when it comes to what you can do, like, when does the line cross between Christian display, which is illegal, like only Christian display is illegal, to, okay, it's surrounded by non-Christian elements, so it's legal now? Where is the line drawn? And the answer is there's no line. The case law is very bad about that. And I wouldn't want to go under like a right-wing Supreme Court and a right-wing judiciary to try to make a case that just putting Santa on the property makes everything better. Because I'm pretty sure they'd be like, you got one non-Jesus thing, so shut up. That's how the law would work now. So I don't think anyone's going to sue over this. But I think the city will be allowed to get away with it. So that's unfortunate, but it seems like the atheists won and Justin Scott won. And yet I think the city's going to pass this off as a victory based on what I saw in like Facebook comments, Twitter threads. It seemed like people in the city said, wonderful, the display is back. The atheists have lost, or like that's the gist of it. And it's like, nope, the atheists won. You did what they said, so it's fine. So what's that all about? The one other interesting reaction came from the right-wing Catholic League, which is run by a dude named Bill Donahue, who is this blowhard who gets paid over $1 million a year to write press releases like the one I'm about to show you. $1 million. Here's what he wrote to atheists: sue us. That's it. That's kind of their whole thing here. He says, this atheist hate group from Wisconsin, which just, it's dumb. It's projection. Again, that's what conservatives do. You call us a hate group because we're actually hateful. Well, you're a hate group because you like the Constitution. Check this out. FFRF is wrong, says the Catholic League. This is pure intimidation. Nativity scenes on public property are necessary and appropriate at Christmas time, and the only people who think they are divisive are Christian bashers who specialize in dividing Americans. It is entirely legal to display a nativity scene on public property. Some conditions may apply. And let's just stop there to appreciate the little jujitsu, the verbal jujitsu he just did there, because he's saying it's legal to display a nativity scene on public property, but only if you surround it by non-Jesus-y elements, which is exactly what FFRF said, which is exactly what he is saying now, but pretending like he's saying something different. Because he's Bill Donahue and he's not a smart guy, and no one who works at the Catholic League is smart enough to correct him, so they all just go along with it. And then Bill Donahue says, we erected a nativity scene in Central Park. I actually think it's outside Central Park in New York City. But look at how he phrases this. We got a permit from the city of New York's Parks Department every year. We get it. And we have had our nativity scene on display there since the mid-90s. We don't have any secular symbols around our display. It's a religious expression. If we were to display a nativity scene, blah, 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 we would have to include secular symbols. Otherwise, it might give the impression that the government is endorsing Christianity. Like, what is he saying? This is what FFRF says. Why is he parroting what church-state separation people say and acting like he's saying something different? And here's the thing. Yes, the Catholic League has a nativity scene somewhere in New York City because they applied for a permit. Why is that okay? Because New York City has a permit process. Any other group that follows their rules can also apply for the permit. So no one cares about the Catholics' nativity scene. They followed the rules. They got their display. It's the same reason no one's complaining about the Thomas More Society's Catholic display in the Iowa State Capitol. They followed the rules. They got their display. It is legal. No one is complaining about this if you follow the law. And that is exactly what Bill Donahue is saying here, too, but acting like FFRF, which said the exact same things, is a hate group. And then look at this at the bottom. If FFRF wants a showdown over this issue, let them sue the Catholic League for erecting its nativity scene in Central Park. Good luck with that. Why? Why would FFRF sue when you did the thing they want everyone to do? Seriously, is the Catholic League this dumb? Do they only hire people who don't read the press releases? Who is this guy? Who's this guy right here? He has an Indian name. You should be smarter than that, says me. I don't know what he's like, sue me, debate me. And it's like, we all seem to be on the same page here. So I don't know what you're mad about, but it's Bill Donahue. He has to be mad about something. Otherwise, he doesn't get paid $1 million for everything he wants. That's the Catholic display right now. I hope that's the end of the story. I don't know if they're going to do anything else in Toledo, but hopefully that should calm down the rabble-rousers who showed up to the city council meeting earlier this week. What else we got here? What other questions, concerns, all that stuff do we have? Dear Toledo, please put up a 15-foot tall African Jesus. Yeah, how funny would that be? Megyn Kelly would be so mad. 15-foot drag Jesus. There have got to be some of those left over from Halloween. It's got to be okay, right? It's fine. It's fine. Someone's got to do it. Have the courage. Can you imagine if that's the display that went up in Iowa? What's your take on the new news from Mikey Weinstein and the Military Religion Freedom Foundation about the theocratic takeover of the military? Nadia, I need more specifics about which thing you're talking about, because a couple things. First, yes, there is Christian nationalism in the military. Some of the things this group, MRFF, Military Religious Freedom Foundation, sorry, it's religion. Some of the stuff they call out is absolutely correct and appropriate. They call out religion and the establishment of religion in the military specifically, where the laws are a little more strict. And I think they are right to do so. And I do agree, like, there's a problem in the military where a lot of people in positions of power and leadership are trying to push their will and their religious faith on other people. That is a problem. I wish more would be done to stop that. I appreciate what MRFF does to try to stop that. At the same time, they cry foul over things I don't personally think are problematic a lot of times. So it's like, all right, buddy, like every mention of Jesus by every person in the military, like, I don't know, they cry foul when they don't have to, whereas a group like the Freedom From Religion Foundation seems to pick and choose their battles and only chime in when it actually makes a difference or the the principle matters to them. Mikey Weinstein cries foul about everything, and if you complain about everything, now you're the boy who cried wolf, and it's like I want to be able to take them seriously when they complain. And if you send me a press release every day, practically saying this is the biggest travesty that ever happened in the military, which is how pretty much every press release sounds, it's hard to take them that seriously, even though there is a lot of crazy stuff happening in the military. And on par, they're more right than wrong. What other questions here? No other questions for now. In that case, let's talk about something totally different. This is a fascinating story I want to talk about. Let me just get this up here. Okay, here's the story I want to talk to you about. The ACLU, it is not weird for the American Civil Liberties Union to defend conservative groups on issues of free speech and the First Amendment. They've done this a long time. Like the ACLU proudly says, we defend freedom of speech, and that includes speech a lot of people might find offensive. So if like a neo-Nazi group or the KKK want to stage a protest or a peaceful rally in a heavily Jewish area, they have argued, we don't like this, but they have the right to have a rally or something like that. Like, so the ACLU, for all of its flaws, is fairly principled on this matter. If it's a freedom of speech issue, they want to defend it. Okay, fine. I'm okay with that. By the way, I'm a due-paying member of the ACLU. I appreciate what they do. So it is not weird to me that they just announced this lawsuit about a Christian ad on the buses in Washington, D.C. This is the headline I will share with you on the press release that they put out. It says, lawsuit challenges D.C. Transit Authority for violating the First Amendment. And it's important to talk about what the challenge is here. And the first thing I'll show you is this. This is the ad that they are talking about, because it's important for you to know which ad we are actually referring to here. Here we go. So this is the ad. I know my face is in the way here. Let's try that. It's a sign that says Christian, and underneath it says, to find out about the faith of our founders, go to wallbuilders.com. And that's George Washington kneeling in prayer. That's a painting, obviously, because that never happened. But okay, that's the ad. And the company, Wall Builders, behind this ad asked the Washington, what was it called? The Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority. They said, we want this ad on buses. There's also one more ad just like it that I will show you. Same idea here. This is like a picture of the founders writing the Constitution, I assume, but it's the same text. So they wanted those two signs to go on buses in Washington, D.C. And basically, the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, the WMATA, they said no. They rejected the ads on the grounds that they violate the company's rules. And what are the rules? The rules prohibit any advertising that is basically advocacy. They don't allow political ads. They don't allow like promotion of religion ads. And they don't allow advocacy ads trying to sway members of the public on issues where there might be a lot of opinion. And so they said this is advocacy. Not necessarily promotion of religion, because it's not, but it's advocacy. So they said no. And the ACLU is saying you made the wrong decision there. That's a government entity. You can't say no on the basis of advocacy when you allow other ads to go up. And the ACLU actually pointed out in their lawsuit that you have actually allowed other groups to put up ads as well. I'm looking for specifically they said, you have allowed an advertisement promoting the Book of Mormon musical, which is a spoof of the actual Mormon church, right? Isn't that advocacy or religion? They've also allowed something about putting term limits on Supreme Court justices. There was an ad calling for term limits, and that ad was allowed to go up on buses. And that's advocacy as well. So the ACLU is saying you allowed those. So why are you rejecting this? You can't do it. You got to play by the rules. So we're filing a lawsuit because you can't reject this ad. And I just want to say, on principle, that's the correct move by the ACLU. I agree. If the WMATA is allowing advocacy ads in some cases, they don't get to pick and choose. They got to follow their own rules. And so these ads should go up. So the ACLU is right on that issue. Okay. Now, let's talk about everything wrong with this case. Because the first thing is going back to this ad, there's a lot wrong with it. Let's talk about what's wrong with it. This is a famous painting by a guy named Henry Bruckner, and he painted George Washington kneeling in prayer. The problem with that ad is that that never happened. I'm going to read you something. This is from Andrew Seidel's book, The Founding Myth. I'm going to blow this up so you can see it a little bit. For all the painting's ubiquity, there's no historical evidence to support the tale that Washington prayed like that. Priest Mason Weems designed the story to portray a devout Washington, but historical facts tell us of a different Washington. He was a man of little or no religion with a strong character that, had he been religious, would have prevented showy religious displays. On the rare, I'm going to skip ahead here. If he was religious, Washington was exceedingly private about those beliefs. Whoops, there we go. Even in personal letters and papers, the ostentatious show Weems invented is simply not in keeping with Washington's strong, silent character. So the idea here is, look, this idea that Washington was the sort of dude who prays to Jesus in public, posing while someone paints him, BS. That never happened. That's not who Washington was. That makes absolutely no sense. The other thing, and I'm sure some of you have made this connection already in the comments, and this is the part that really bothers me, is that Wall Builders, the group that those ads were directing you toward, is an organization run by a guy named David Barton. And Barton is famously a liar. Like, famously a liar. He uses Wall Builders to spread lies about the founding fathers. That's his whole jam. He's been doing that for decades. Specifically, just to give you an idea of what he does, David Barton once wrote an entire book about Thomas Jefferson called The Jefferson Lies. That was so full of actual lies that his Christian publishers pulled the book off of every bookshelf and said, we can't publish this at all because there were historical details, I'm quoting here, there were historical details, matters of fact, not matters of opinion, that were not supported at all. So his Christian publishers said, this book has too many lies, we can't sell it. And then they continue to sell the Bible. Hilarious. But that's David Barton for you. He keeps putting out sermons that say, you know, this founding father, that founding father, they were all Christian. They were all conservative Christians. They all supported a Christian nation, that Christianity should be the foundation of our country. And he selectively chooses bits and pieces of like letters they wrote and things, documents, to suggest that they were all in on a theocracy in everything but the name. You know what I mean? So he lies. And it doesn't matter how many times like Right Wing Watch debunks his lies. None of that matters because he just keeps lying because the Christians who believe him just swallow it up because they don't know they're being lied to. So this is him. By the way, David Barton once claimed to have a PhD. Turned out that was a hoax as well. He's George Santos in the world of Christianity. That's David Barton for you. So going back to those ads that David Barton wanted to put up on the thing, should it bother us that the ACLU is defending a well-known Christian liar who wants to put up ads that suggest the founding fathers were Christian or there was something about them that was Christian, should that bother us? And the answer is honestly, no. Lying that way is not a crime. It's still advocacy, and I still think the ACLU is right to defend Barton on this matter. We can disagree about that, but I do think the ACLU is legally in the right. Here's the part that really bothered me, though, because I was looking at the press release that they released about their lawsuit, announcing their lawsuit, and I want you to see how they described David Barton's group, okay? Because this should be a basic matter of fact, where they say what happened here. Here we go. Here's from the ACLU's press release here. Check this out. They said they are filing this lawsuit. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of Wall Builder Presentation, Wall Builders, that's David Barton's group, an organization advocating for Americans to understand their history and the important role religion played in the founding of our nation, which sought to advertise on the side of WMATA Metro buses. Like, what? What are you talking about? They don't want Americans to know their history. They want Americans to not know their history. I know that because David Barton lies for a living. So why are they framing this as Wall Builders is this fantastic group that just wants Americans to be educated? No, they don't. And Wall Builders apparently wants people to know the important role religion played in the founding of our nation. No, they have no desire to teach Americans about the role religion played in the founding of our nation, because the answer to that is very little. They don't want Americans to know that. That's what history actually teaches. David Barton wants to lie to them and say religion was at the heart of everything that happened at the beginning of this country. So the thing that bothers me is, and by the way, I know some of you are saying this in the comments too, it should bother all of us that David Barton's group's name is Wall Builders, when the thing he wants to do is tear down the wall between church and state. Like, Americans United for Separation of Church and State, that group could be called Wall Builders. David Barton is the guy trying to tear down the wall. Anyway, besides the point, why is the ACLU allowing Wall Builders to frame their own description as if they are offering a public service? They're not. Like, who wrote this press release? Was it Wall Builders? I don't know. Like, if I go up a bit, it's not just the ACLU working on this case. It also points out that the First Liberty Institute, which is a conservative legal group, is also working on this case. And usually when several groups are working on a particular legal battle, they share resources in that front. So they write the legal draft, the lawsuit draft together, and they pass it, circulate it between each other, and they all sign off on it. Same thing with the press release. My assumption here is that someone at First Liberty Institute wrote this passage. And by the way, they said something very similar in the lawsuit itself. But it bothers me that the ACLU did not correct that, because they could very easily have said, David Barton lies about American history. He spreads misinformation about the founding fathers. However, that is irrelevant here, because even liars who are advocating for something should have access to post their ads in this public setup. And the city of Washington, D.C. has no right to tell him he's not allowed to lie to people. Like, fine, use better language. But the ACLU could have said that. Instead, like, they just allowed the David Barton framing of all this to win the day. And like, why would they do that? Because you know what's going to happen from here on out? David Barton's going to use that to promote his own stuff. Like, David Barton can now say with complete sincerity that even the godless liberal ACLU believes that Wall Builders works to help Americans understand their history and the important role religion played in the founding of our nation. And he wouldn't be wrong about that. Like, he would be mischaracterizing the statement, as he always does, but like at the core of his lie is a thing the ACLU said. And like, how does the people at the ACLU, how do you not know that your words are going to be twisted and taken out of context in order to promote something that shouldn't be said? There's a professor, a blogger, Warren Throckmorton, who I have a lot of respect for. He actually was the first one to point all this out, and this is what he wrote. David Barton and Wall Builders obscures and reimagines American history. He does not want Americans to understand all of their history. Sometimes he leaves out the history when he tells it with a bunch of examples. Sometimes he makes things up, like when he says Jefferson cut out and pasted end to end all the words of Jesus in a little book for Indians to read. Barton will even tell Americans that the Constitution quotes the Bible verbatim. Does someone who does those things really want Americans to understand their history? So if the ACLU must represent misinformation as free speech, then go for it. But must they lie to defend lying? Yeah, Warren's right. Like, again, the ACLU is right to take up this case. They do not have to play along with the incorrect framing that David Barton wants. And it's irresponsible of the ACLU to do that. All right, I'm going to pause there for a second while we get to other questions. What else we got here? My thoughts are that an organization like Wall Builders has other options for legal services and that the ACLU should make them use them. And here's the thing. You're right. I don't remember Wall Builders' budget off the top of my head. I'm sure it's not just a little bit. They have a huge budget. They could get lawyers from wherever they want. But if you are David Barton and you're asking yourself, I think I have a legal case here, who should represent me? Sure, you could go to conservative groups that are like issue oriented and want to support bullshit. But man, if you're David Barton and the ACLU says, we will also take up this case, you're absolutely going to allow them to do it because you get to tell everyone, look, even liberals agree with me on this thing. And again, I see value. Sometimes groups like Americans United for Separation of Church and State have partnered with right-wing like religious organizations on some issue concerning freedom of religion or freedom of speech. And they will go to the Supreme Court and say, look, we oppose each other on 99% of things, but on this issue, we're working together. And if we're working together on this, you need to agree with us because we have figured this thing out. We are on the same side. So it can be a powerful tool to use when you're in front of judges. But again, one, the ACLU plays triage with every case. They don't have to take up everything. But two, they definitely don't have to go along with the preferred wording of some right-wing misinformation group. They can just tell the truth. So I don't know who made that decision, but it was the wrong one. Oh, thank you, Robin, for that super sticker. I hope you're all using the Hemant emoji, which exists if you are a subscriber on YouTube and elsewhere. What other questions are there? No other questions right now. I will go a couple more stories here, but they're a little shorter. This one surprised me quite a bit. It involves a story out of Nebraska and the Mormon Church. And this is the headline I saw in a publication called the Flatwater Free Press. And I'm just going to show you the headline because I think it tells 90% of the story right here. Who's buying Nebraska? After shopping spree, the Mormon Church is the top land purchaser. Look at the subtitle here, or the subheading here. In the past 5 years, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints bought twice as much Nebraska land as the second biggest buyer. If they keep it up, they'll soon own more than anyone. The Mormon Church is buying up Nebraska, which is weird and messed up. And here's the numbers for you here, because this is also important to consider. This is all from a reporter named Destiny Herbers, who did just an amazing job bringing all this to light. So check this out. The church bought a whopping 57,500 acres, double the amount of the second largest buyer, between 2018 and 2022. The Mormon Church now owns about 370,000 total acres of zoned agricultural land in Nebraska. It could soon become Nebraska's largest landowner, passing Ted Turner, who was the TNT guy, TBS Turner, who was famously long occupied, and CNN, that number one spot, if church representatives continue to buy land at their current pace. So the Mormon church is buying up all this land, and it raises a couple of questions like, how are they doing this? And why did it take an investigative journalist to find it out? And why? What's the benefit? Are they going to build Mormon churches, Mormon temples all over this land? The answer is no. The how is actually kind of diabolical, because in order to make sense of that, you have to realize that the LDS Church has been doing this for a long time. This is a headline from the Truth and Transparency Foundation a while back, but this is an article from 2022. The LDS Church has the most valuable private real estate portfolio in the US. And basically, we have learned over the past few years that the Mormon Church is just sitting on a giant Scrooge McDuck pile of cash. This is from the Wall Street Journal. The Mormon Church amassed $100 billion. It was the best kept secret in the investment world. This article, which is, when is this one from? This is from 2020. This article basically said there were whistleblowers who worked for the Mormon Church, and they were like accountants who said, there's all this tithe money coming in that is earmarked for charity, but like none of it really is going out. So the Mormon Church is just sitting on all this cash, and it's not being used as intended. But it's tax-free. Mormon Church doesn't have to pay taxes on all that charity. So what are they doing with all these billions and billions of dollars? That's pretty weird, right? It should be. There were other articles that came out in the years to follow where they said it wasn't just that much money. How much money are we talking here? This is from the Salt Lake Tribune. This is another article. A separate analysis based on public documents, oh no, go away pop-up thing, indicates the $49 billion represents only part of the church holdings managed by the Salt Lake City firm. These holdings are worth at least $163 billion. So how much money does the Mormon Church have? Might be $100 billion, might be $163 billion. The answer is, it's a lot. And they own stock in every tech company you can think of. Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, the parent company of Google, Amazon, Meta, the parent company of Facebook. They own stock in MasterCard, ExxonMobil. How do they do it? With the help of shell companies that have non-Mormon-y names that allow the church to hide what they're doing from the public. So basically, church leaders have defended all this by saying, it's all rainy day money in case of economic downturns. And it also helps us with missionary work because we send all those kids on mission trips. But also, that's a lot of money and it's not all going for mission trips. And also, no economic downturn means you need $100 billion. So that's the how are they buying all this stuff? Why are they buying up this land specifically? Well, this is where it gets interesting. They actually use a nonprofit group to buy up all this land, and they use a nonprofit shell company that's called Farmland Reserve Incorporated. This is from that Flatwater Free Press article. Farmland Reserve Incorporated. The church sees its land buys as a force for good, an investment in agriculture to generate long-term value to support the church's religious, charitable, and humanitarian good works. The nonprofit also pays property taxes like any other agricultural producer in the state and federal income taxes too. Well, that's nice. Though an unknown amount of revenue is given to the church itself, which doesn't have to pay taxes on passive investments. So there you go. So they pay taxes on some of it, but not all of it. So that makes it a very good investment for the church. So that's messed up for one. But the other, this is the other thing. Let me see if I could pull this up. This is the thing that one of the former church presidents said about the need to buy farmland specifically. Why ranching? Why farmland? Former church president Gordon B. Hinckley explained that it explained its farming plans in the 1991 State of the Church, or like the State of the Union for the Mormon Church. We felt that good farms over a long period represent a safe investment where the assets of the church may be preserved and enhanced, while at the same time they're available as an agricultural resource to feed people should there come a time of need. So, do you all remember, like, in the news a couple years ago, there was a famous Christian grifter named Jim Baker, and he was selling these giant buckets of food. Seriously, if you're online right now, go Google Jim Baker with two Ks, trying to sell buckets of apocalypse food that you could hide in your basement. And then when, the devil comes down or whatever happens, you can go in your basement and hide from Satan and just eat your bucket of slop. Um, Mormon Church now is saying the same thing. When bad things happen, we got to be able to feed people. So we're buying up all this farmland to help everybody. And by everybody, first of all, I think they're lying. But two, they're only going to help their own people first. They're not helping everybody because they don't do that now. But that's why they're doing this. That's how they're doing this, or at least this is how they're justifying doing this. But by purchasing all this land, like one of the downsides of purchasing all this land, as is true everywhere, they're also driving up real estate prices and making life harder for independent farmers. Not that the church cares. Like, it's just another investment from a wealthy company that only knows it wants more. Interestingly enough, nonprofits could not own farmland in Nebraska until 2007. So initially, the church's for-profit arm bought a lot of land, but as soon as that law was declared illegal in 2007, they started buying more under. I'm sorry, I reversed that. Only nonprofits could buy land up until 2007. After the law changed, the for-profit part of the Mormon Church took over, and they called that section Ag Reserves Incorporated. And it's a lot. All of this land they are purchasing, they are hoarding with the donations of very gullible believers. And they stand to make a lot of money off of this without doing any work. And the church says they may lease some of the land to local farmers, which is a fine business strategy, but it's not like they're going to build affordable housing on it. Like, when you consider how much money the Mormon church is investing and how much they stand to make over the next several decades, and then you compare that to how relatively little they are investing into actually making the world a better place, it's just a reminder of how, for the Mormon church, for a lot of religions in general, profit always comes before principles. And I think a lot of commenters, I'm going to paraphrase here, but a lot of commenters sum this up the best way I can possibly think of. This is not a religion with a side business. This is a business with a side religion. I will stop it there. What other questions we got over here? I think I have one more and then we'll wrap it up. They're probably setting up more for-profit businesses. I don't doubt that. That's probably true. Mormon said you get your own planet. Are they buying Earth? Well played, Alma. Yeah, they want this one. All the other ones are for the peasants. Have you been to the temple thing in Salt Lake? You know what? I don't think I've been to Salt Lake. I'm actually going to Utah for the first time, or at least spending time in Utah for the first time next spring. But even then, it's probably going to be like visiting Zion National Park or something and not Salt Lake. But, as a sociological thing, I would be curious to see the Mormon temple, see all that stuff in Salt Lake City, just because I find that interesting. But no, I haven't been there yet. And I think I'm flying into Vegas, so I'm not flying into Salt Lake City either, so it's not exactly on the way. Didn't they start in Illinois? Yeah, I think they did in a part of it, and I don't know enough about the history, so I'm going to screw up if I try to explain myself. Any other questions there? All right, I'm going to go to one last story, and then I'll call it a night here. This is a fascinating story. I'm going to share a clip with you in a second. But basically, this is about a Texas pastor who warned his congregation that anyone who associates with critics of his criminally charged buddy will be murdered. And I'm going to show you what he actually said. This story involves a guy named Jeremy File of Accelerate Church in Amarillo, Texas. This is who we're talking about here. But basically, this guy was delivering a sermon and he was very mad that rumors were spreading about a friend of his. And so I'm going to play you this sermon and we're going to talk about it. There's two things I got to set you up for. First is that the name of the buddy, his buddy who's being charged with something, his name is James Randolph. So you're going to hear that name in the clip. And Jeremy here is going to talk about how unfair Jeremy's being treated. The other thing he points out is that he never hangs out with people who are sexually immoral. And that includes gay people. And then he's going to tell you a weird story about how he hangs out with gay people. And we're going to talk about that too. Let me play you this clip. Enjoy watching it and listen out for the line about the punishment for people who talk shit about his buddy.
I'm saying this because you might have heard that my friend James Randolph has been lied about recently. And whenever I get a call from him and he tells me about that, he's going to court tomorrow. I believe that he's going to be, I believe justice will be served and all liars will be exposed. Eventually it's going to happen one way or another. You mark my word. It always happens. But to think that people that left our fellowship are somehow involved in encouraging that made me go on high alert. I'm not going to allow people like that around here, and I'm letting you know that. They're not going to come and video. They're not going to come and do this. And if you still talk to them and you listen to them, you're going to be sniped and taken out, and you don't come crying to me later. I've warned you and warned you and warned you and warned you and warned you. If you think this is a personal matter, you've missed the entire boat. This is a spiritual war that we're in. Men that I respect and look up to are being lied about. Now, you can either trust that or not. I know we live in David. You say, I don't know if we can trust. You better listen to what I'm saying. I don't hang out with pervs. Pervs run away from me. They always have. Since I follow God with all my heart, they've run away from me. I told a story. I heard myself on the radio telling it recently. You may not understand this. I've reached out to the LGBT lifestyle for a long time in the past to try to get them born again. And one night I had one of them in the car. I went to pick him up for church, and he had grown his nails out, and he said, I tell you right now, if you hate on me, I'll scratch you to death. I said, you ain't going to touch me. You're going to either repent or else you're going to get out of this car. I ain't putting up with that. Now, I'm not hating on anybody either, but I don't have to confirm your sinful lifestyle. The church does not exist to confirm sin. It exists to get you out of sin and so that you can reign in life.
There was a lot going on there. Holy crap. Okay, first of all, if you have to say, I don't hang out with pervs, like his I don't hang out with pervs t-shirt has people asking a lot of questions already answered by the shirt. Also, what's that bit about hanging out with the LGBT lifestyle in his car with someone who clearly doesn't want to go to church? Now I have questions about that too. So that all of that part, that's just weird. And like all of you are commenting, like, yeah, I'm waiting for that story to be broken too. But okay, what are we talking about with this buddy, James Randolph? Because that is the real story here. Because he just said anyone who talks smack or basically spreads the charges about James Randolph will be sniped and taken out. He's going to murder his own congregation if they talk about what's in the news. So his congregation isn't allowed to talk about what's in the news, but I'm not in the congregation, so let's talk about it. James Randolph, you should know, is not just some random dude. He is the son-in-law of a televangelist named Mark Barclay. And I'm going to show you an article about Mark Barclay because it turns out televangelist Mark Barclay is a grifter. This is an actual headline from the Christian Post. Televangelist asks followers for $79,000 to do paint job on Lord's jet he bought last year. This guy wanted $80,000 from his followers to paint his private jet. And you know what? I will say for the Christian Post, this illustration is glorious. Well played, Christian Post. So that is the family that James Randolph married into. It's a televangelist with enough money to have a private jet. And James Randolph worked at that guy's ministry called Living Word International Church, based in Michigan. Or at least he did work there until like this past month, when this is the news that became public. Living Word Church minister Reverend James Randolph arrested for sexual assault. Like, you knew that was coming. And according to this article, Living Word International Church minister James Randolph was arrested and charged Tuesday with first-degree criminal sexual conduct involving a relationship, 4 counts of second-degree criminal sexual conduct, and 1 count of accosting children for immoral purposes for crimes allegedly occurring in 2011. Randolph is charged with 7 felony counts and is out of jail on a $500,000 cash bond. His second-degree criminal sexual conduct charges include 1 allegedly with a person under 13 years old and 2 involving a relationship. He was arraigned on the charges, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So this guy is accused, he's not in jail. He hasn't been found guilty. He has been charged, though, with something very serious and very icky. And it's criminal sexual assault of a child. That's what he's been accused of. Now, I'm not passing any judgment on the guy. I don't know the specifics. And I think anyone accused of something as serious as that, you got to let the system play out. You got to let the sides present evidence and all that stuff. I will tell you, he is out of jail. When they went to court, it was to try to change up the terms of his bond. And the court denied that motion. So there is an examination hearing soon. This will play out in courts. I don't know what happens. But while we are waiting for that to happen, that is a real charge that took place. You know what's also messed up? Those are 7 charges that took place. The church, by the way, put that guy, James Randolph, on administrative leave after the charges were filed. And then they put out a statement saying the allegations do not involve the church and the alleged acts did not take place in the church, as if that's like, hey, don't blame us. We had nothing to do with this. And it's like, he worked for you, buddy. I know you think the church is not complicit in this. However, by the way, this arrest of James Randolph came months after someone else who worked at the same church was charged with almost identical crimes. So, like, what the hell is in their baptismal water? Weird. So, look, you got to take the charges seriously, if nothing else, because if they are found to be true, if he is found guilty, then the guy, not only does the guy deserve to be imprisoned or whatever the punishment will be, but that means the people who are defending him need to answer for themselves as well. And the good news is all those charges appear to be taken seriously by everyone outside of this church. Meanwhile, File over here, the guy you saw in that clip, is acting like his buddy is a victim of unfair persecution, right? He's urging his church to avoid social media where details about the case may be posted online. The guy, by the way, who posted that clip, you won't find that sermon online anymore because he took it down. But there was a Christian watchdog who clipped that sermon, and he also pointed out that in a separate part of that very sermon, File bragged about how his 2-year-old son obeyed him whenever he was threatened with a wooden spoon. So this pastor is a moral monster himself. He thinks violence is the way to get your kid to be obedient. And like just a whole church full of messed up people. And here's the thing, even if Randolph is found guilty, what do you think this guy's going to do? Is he going to apologize? No, of course not. He's never going to admit he misjudged his buddy. If his buddy is found guilty, it'll be the criminal justice system that's the problem. The judge was anti-Christian. They were out to persecute the guy, whatever. He'll never admit his best friend is, in his words, a perv that he hangs out with. Like so many right-wing zealots, like he's only going to get more defensive while ignoring any evidence to the contrary. And the sad thing is, if people in his congregation even dare to consider the proof, he's going to treat them like outcasts and slander them with faith-based rhetoric and make sure they're cut out of any church-based social circles, because that's how these culty type of churches operate. So it's worth keeping a close eye on this church, keeping a close eye on that pastor, because he looks like he has skeletons in the closet, and also seeing what happens if and when this buddy of his is found guilty. How are these people going to react? That's worth keeping an eye on. But man, telling your congregation I'm going to murder you if you spread this charge, that's intense. I'll leave it there. I think I am done for tonight, unless there are any other questions. In the meantime, I will just say, as always, you can support this channel by going to Patreon. I know this was live on Instagram tonight too. I have no idea if that worked, but hey, if you're on Instagram, send me a message and tell me if you watched it. I have no idea. As always, I'll still be back next week, and hopefully you all have good holiday breaks. And if you're done with school or whatever, I hope you have a good holiday. I'll see you next week. Have a good one. Thanks, Den, for all your help as well.